Day is February 15th, 2023, and we are here at the Denver Kehillah for our weekly Parshat Shavua class, probing the Parshat Mishpatim. And so this we're gonna focus on a really interesting mitzvah, and a mitzvah related to Dinei Mamonot, as we would call it, a mitzvah dealing with finance law, lending and borrowing. And then we're going to look at a really fascinating and I think inspiring essay by Rabbi Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg. And before we get to the essay, we'll look at his bio briefly on just to get a sense of who he was. But let's look at the psukim first that we're going to deal with before we get to the essay. And we'll be jumping back and forth between two sources here. So I'm just going to get the other source ready to go on the screen so that when we need it, we have it. Okay, so we're back here on the source is from Shemot, Perek Chaf Bet, Psukim Chaf Daled through Chaf Vav, Exodus 22, verses 24 through 26. And these verses deal with what happens if someone someone borrows money. We're using this one right here. I don't know if there's enough to go around. So someone borrows money and they leave some collateral for the loan. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. So the psukim say, "Im kesef talveh et ami et ha'ani imach, lo tiyeh lo kinoshet, lo tisimun alav neshech." If you lend money to my people, to the poor among you, do not act toward them as a creditor, exact no interest from them. So that's a halacha that we're not supposed to charge interest on a loan, which we're not going to focus on tonight. Then comes the next pasuk. Im chavol tachbol salmat re'echa ad bo hashemesh tashivenu lo. If you take your neighbor's garment in pledge, you must return it before the sun sets. Ki hi ksuta levadahi stimlato le'oro ba'meh yishkav. Vayaki yitzak elai v'shamati ki chanun ani. It is the only available clothing. It is what covers the skin. In what else shall your neighbor sleep? Therefore, if that person cries out to me, I will pay heed, for I am compassionate. Again, I'm sorry about this, like this cartoonish font. I'm not sure why this happened. Okay, so this is the halacha that says if you borrow money and the borrower leaves as collateral, leaves their garment at night, you have to give it back to them. And then presumably they bring it back to you in the morning and you hold it and you give it back to them at night. And this will go on until they pay back the loan. Okay, so put yourself in the position of the lender. And how does that feel? Why? Right. But what do you also do? They're not naked. They just have a blanket. Let's think of it as like a sleeping bag or a blanket, right? So at night they go home with their blanket, and you are the lender.
It's risky. I mean, if you can trust that he's going to bring it back in the morning, you don't need the collateral to begin with.
It's risky that they're not going to bring it back in the morning, and I think there's another point.
We're reducing the value of the collateral, perspective of where the whole point of the collateral is that it has some intrinsic value in the first place.
Right.
But what's the value of it during the day if you're not using it? Right?
Okay, good, right, true. And yeah, I think there's also another thing. I think, why would the borrower ever want to pay back the loan if every night they get their blanket back? They just got to bring it to the guy in the morning, and maybe the guy even washes it and folds it for them, who knows, right? And they get it back. They get it back the next. He gets it back at night. He goes home, has a good night's sleep with his blanket, right? What the whole point of collateral is to have some sort of incentive to pay back the loan, right? And so that's a strange halacha, which seems quite lopsided.
Although maybe the guy doesn't feel good that every day he has to go back and forth and like that's maybe like even a little like more demeaning for him.
Okay, true. I mean, that's true. There's definitely an element of, well, he doesn't have to get it back every night, I guess.
Why wouldn't he have to get it back unless he really needs
Right, he would only get it back if he really needs it. But then there is an element of it being demeaning by having to bring it back every morning and then take it back every night and bring it back every morning. Okay, that's true.
Rabbi, I think you're describing collateral a little differently than traditionally, I think of it at least.
Okay.
Collateral is meant if there is a default, you can liquidate the collateral and get your money back as the lender. So even if there is no incentive for the guy to pay back, you still have the collateral, which will enable you to be paid back through the collateral.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're right. I guess you have to figure the details of the terms, I guess, would matter here. And maybe if he doesn't get it, well, it certainly would slow. It certainly, I think, would slow down the borrower's need to pay, the borrower's desire to pay, at least maybe until the very last minute, if in fact they can liquidate the collateral. Yeah, that's a good point. Carol?
So what I don't understand is if God's gonna say, if they cry out to me, I'll be compassionate, like why not just say you can't take your neighbor's only garment as a pledge?
Okay, excellent question. Well, it could be, I'm not sure, but it could be because we don't want to totally handicap the lender, right? We do want to give the lender some ability to have some leverage to get their loan back.
Okay, it just seems odd that God says that his response will be compassion. Like if that's what's fair, why not just sort of say that at the beginning?
Oh, well, fair is different than compassionate here, right? I'm not sure if this pasuk is fair. And
Right.
let's hold on to that, because I think that's exactly what the question is, right? Is this fair? And fair to who? I have a particular view of who this is not fair towards, but let's hold on to that, because I'm not sure if fairness is what's at stake when God says, if the person cries out to me, I'm going to listen. And that's what the essay is going to get into. So hold on to that thought. I'm glad you brought that up.
It would seem like
Why are we assuming it's the only available clothes? It doesn't say if it is the only available clothing. It says it is the only available clothing. So I'm a little confused as to why we're assuming that when you
I don't think the person's walking around naked. It seems to me like it's something a little different than that. But it's their only available clothing for the nighttime.
I don't, the way it prefaces it is if you take your neighbor's garment, it doesn't say what kind of neighbor's garment, right?
Yeah, that's true. But that I'm not sure if that matters for the context of what we're talking about. But we'll check the commentaries a little bit later to see.
Okay.
But yeah, but I don't think that's what I don't think that it means that the person is literally without anything to wear. But we'll come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
it seems like we're talking about a very small amount of money. If a beggar's old ratty blanket is the collateral, what are we talking about? $10, $20? Like,
Okay,
It seems like this whole case and everything else, just to show us to be compassionate and to think about other people. It's not like a reality, like nobody's taking someone's blanket as a collateral, I would think.
I don't know. But it's certainly important to the man who has no blanket at night.
Right.
Right, it's important to him.
I don't think this is like a legal case. Oh, let's study it because, I think we study it because it's compassion and shows thinking about other people. I don't really think the details of
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this is considered in halacha a little bit later. We'll see. Okay, this halacha is restated in Devarim, which you have on the sheet in front of you and on the screen. Hashev tashiv lo et ha'avot kivo hashemesh v'shachav b'salmato uverchecha ulechatia tzedakah l'fnei Hashem Elokecha. You must return the pledge at sundown, that its owner may sleep in the cloth, and bless you, and it will be to your merit before your God Hashem. So those are the two psukim that we need to have as we start the article, this essay now, by Rabbi Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg. Rabbi Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg was the last Rosh Yeshiva or head of the Hildesheimer Rabbinical Seminary in Berlin before World War II, before the Shoah, when it was closed. He managed to escape. He was born in Poland, then made his way to Germany, and became the head of this yeshiva, which was a yeshiva that had sort of more modern methods of study, and then it managed to escape the war and made it to Montreux, Switzerland, where a student of his also managed to escape and became the Rabbi Weinberg's patron, and basically just supported him for the rest of his life. And he lived in Montreux, Switzerland, as a teacher of mine, Rabbi Saul Berman once referred to him as freelance Talmud Chacham. Like he had no affiliation with yeshiva or with a shul. He just sat and studied and gave shiurim and wrote tshuvot. His volumes of tshuvot are called Sridei Eish, which means the remnant of the fire, referring to his being a Holocaust survivor. And he wrote many newspaper articles and essays over the years, which were eventually collected into one volume, where this essay comes from. This essay was also published in another volume of Chidushim on Shas, on his ideas and his lessons on Talmud. He has a famous tshuva. One of his most famous tshuvot is someone asked about regarding Kol Isha, about men and women singing Shabbat Zemirot together at the table. And if there's a youth group that's coming together and they're doing like kiruv, and they're trying to get the young men and women involved in Torah and in observance, and should the rabbi stop the girls at the table from singing because there are boys and men around? And he wrote a well-known tshuva that said, and that opened up a lot of discussion and a lot of precedent, because he said in that context, in the context of sort of like of holiness, in the context of singing Shirei Kodesh on Shabbos, that's not that in that context, Kol Isha is not relevant. It was very interesting. What's that?
Blasphemy.
It was so. Okay, so that's the Sridei Eish, and he writes this this essay, and the top let's just let's learn it through. Maybe we may skip a little bit, but it's beautiful Torah. So the first thing that he quotes is the Gemara in Masechet Brachot. If you want to see the English, it's in the other source sheet. Okay, let me open the essay for you folks on the screen. So here's the essay. We're going to start with paragraph number 1. Can you guys see this essay on the screen now? It says Bavli Brachot Chaf Amud Bet. Chaf. Can I get a thumbs up? Something? You guys see I switched the text?
No.
I'm still seeing the old text.
Okay. That's not good. Hold on. Now let's start again. How about now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this Gemara on Brachot, if you want to look at it, is for those at the table, it's on the third page, it says Brachot 20b. But it's also just in Hebrew on the top of the essay. I'm sorry, I'm making everyone go back and forth. We want to see the English. So Doras Rab Avira, Zamnin Amar La Mishmei de Rabbi Ami, Zamnin Amar La Mishmei de Rabbi Asi. I love the beginning of this. Rabbi Avira taught, sometimes he said it in the name of Rabbi Ami, and sometimes he said it in the name of Rabbi Asi. Maybe he heard it from both of them, or they both claimed it, because it's a great teaching. Amru Malachei Asharet Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch. So the ministering angels said before God, Ribono shel olam, Katuv b'Toratecha asher lo yisa panim v'lo yikach shochad. Says in the Torah that you, God, you favor no one and you take no bribe. However, you do show favor towards the Jews, towards Israel. Dichtiv, Yisa Hashem panav elecha. We say this in Birkat Kohanim. The Lord shall show favor to you and give you peace. Amar Lahem, so God says, you're right, you got me. V'chilo esa panim Yisrael. How can I not show favor to Israel? Shekatavti lahem b'Torah v'achalta v'savata uve'rachta Hashem Elokecha. I said that only once you are satiated should you bless me, right? Should you say Birkat Hamazon? V'heim medaktikim al atzmam ad kezayit v'ad kebetza. But they go beyond the requirement of the law. They even say Birkat Hamazon by eating a small amount of food, even up to, kezayit, an olive bulk, or a betza, or an egg. Right, so if they go above and beyond what they're supposed to do, they're showing me favor. I think that's the argument, right? I have to show them favor as well. How could I not show them favor after all that they're willing to do for me? Okay, he doesn't begin to. Rav Weinberg does not immediately relate to the essay. He gets to it a little bit later. So now let's get to the essay. Now we're back in the Hebrew essay, paragraph 2. Katuv b'Parshat Kiteitzei. Hashev tashiv lo et ha'avot kivo hashemesh v'shachav b'simlato uve'rachecha v'yachar kach ulechat yetzedakav Hashem Elokecha v'chulei. Right, he quotes the second pasuk that we learned from Devarim, which states the same thing from the pasuk that we learned in this week's parsha, that you have to return this pledge, and that it will be considered to be a merit before God. Vasiyum hazet tzarich biur. The end of this pasuk, he says, requires explanation. Hinei Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom chazar v'shinan b'kitzur nimratz ma shenemar kivar b'Parshat Mishpatim. He says that Moshe in Devarim is giving a Reader's Digest version of what was already taught in this week's Parsha that we're going to read in Shul, Parshat Mishpatim, the first set of psukim that we learned. Sham ne'amar kihi ksuto levadahi simlato le'oro b'mei yishkav v'achar kach v'ya ki yitzak elai v'shamati v'achar kach ki chanunani. I'm going to listen to the person when he cries out for his garment because I am compassionate. So basically, Rav Weinberg is saying, so far we have the pasuk in Devarim, which is a just quick one-sentence review of the two psukim in Shemot. It's not the first time that if you learn Sefer Devarim, you will notice that there are things that are repeated in Sefer Devarim that appeared in other places in the Torah. Okay. V'hadevarim mar'idim et halev. These words make the heart I think it means like shudder or tremble. HaKadosh Baruch Hu omeid umitchanein kiviyachol. It's as if God is standing and begging. Poneh elev ha'adam umer orer rachamav. He's turning to our hearts and trying to sort of arouse our compassion. Ve'achar kach umafchido. And then afterwards, he tries to scare us a little bit. Yaki, itzaki lai. Remember, God says, if this person cries out to me, vishamati, I'm going to listen to them. Kichanunani, because I'm compassionate. V'lo matzinu kazot b'chol haTorah. He says this is the only time we find in the whole Torah. Do you have an exception to this? The only time we find in the whole Torah where God defines himself this way, or maybe he's saying that God says, if someone cries out to me, I'm going to listen. Where we do have Hashem kel rachum b'chanun, we do have God being referred to, but this sort of declaration that if the person cries out to me, I'm going to listen to them, this is unique in the whole Torah. Okay, so he sort of reviews the psukim and then and tries to dramatize them a little bit. Right? There's something going on here that God says, give them the blanket back, and just remember, if they cry out to me, you're going to lose. Right? I'm going to listen to them, kichanunani, because I am compassionate. So Rabbi Weinberg is very interested to know what's going on here, and he asked the question that we've asked in paragraph number 3. V'amnam kvar nitgashu al inyan hamitzvah shel hashavat ha'avot shehu be'emet neged hahigayon v'hamishpat. He says already the question of returning this pledge, which goes counter to logic and justice, right? Because justice would be you keep the pledge until you get your money back. That would also be logical, as he's going to say. Shim alav lachzir b'chol yom et hamashkon, im kein avad kocho upaka bitchono sharei kol ikaro shel hamashkon lavtiach et hamalveh. If you have to give back this collateral, it's lost its strength, as Sammy said, I think. Right? And the whole purpose of it is lost, which is supposed to make the borrower pay back the money. And the fact that you're giving this back every night, you've removed any security from the lender that they're going to get their money back. So this seems not to make any sense. All right, so let's stop here. We've now identified Rabbi Weinberg's question. Anyone want to see if we could come up with his answer as to why would the Torah, right, which allows for borrowing and lending and allows for the requirement, right, a lender is allowed to require a mashkon, is allowed to require a collateral, right? What is going on here?
And one more thing, you're not supposed to favor the poor in matters of justice.
That's a great point, David. Yes. Yes, that's a great point. So,
Was there a Jewish person?
yeah, both Jews, although not favoring a poor person is for a judge.
Right.
Here we're not talking about a judge, but your point is well taken, right? Because the bottom line is, if we're dealing with mishpat, if we're dealing with law, it shouldn't matter. So you're right, David.
Mm-hmm. So it's even more complicated. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe you shouldn't be lending someone like this in the first place. It should be more of a tzedakah. It's like a daily last belonging. Daily.
Interesting.
That's not compassionate already.
Okay. So maybe this is the Torah's way of sort of in a backhanded way saying, what are you doing lending this person money? right? If all they have is one blanket at night, just give them the money as tzedakah. And if you don't, then this is what you get. This is what you have to put up with.
Mhm.
Okay, I like that. I like that. That's good. Right? There's some times where it's reasonable to lend someone money because they may not have the means right now to pay it back or whatever the case may be. But there are some times where a loan is just a little cruel or not realistic, and just the ani is fooling you by suggesting that the ani could pay you back, and you're fooling the ani by assuming you're ever going to get the money back. Just stop the charade. Okay, great. Yvonne?
This seems to be a disguised form of tzedakah. That the intent is not to, it's obviously not a business transaction. So it appears that the intent is to structure tzedakah as a loan.
Nice. Okay. So a little different than what Moshe said, that it sort of as a way to maybe protect the dignity of the poor person, make it look like a loan, but everyone knows, right? Everyone involved knows that the guy's not paying you back and you're not expecting the money, and you're just going to go back and forth. And I guess in this case, David, the guy's never going to liquidate, like a la, pawn shop. He's not going to liquidate the blanket, which is probably not worth that much anyway.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's tzedakah disguised. Right, that's nice. This reminds me, there are a few places like this in Israel where they have soup kitchens, which are made to look like restaurants. So needy people come in. I actually volunteered at a place like this once as a waiter. Needy people come in, they sit down. There's a menu, like 3 or 4 items. They order off the menu. You bring it to them. You serve it to them, and they go on their way instead of standing online. So it's a way to, and you talk with them, and everyone knows what's going on, but it feels different than a line. Yeah. Okay. Nice. All right. Great. Beautiful. This is not Rabbi Weinberg. These are not Rabbi Weinberg's suggestions, but these are beautiful ideas. I like. They're really nice. Okay. Rabbi Weinberg says, yeah, you think this is weird? It is weird. V'amnam kena davar. Yeah, this is not logical, and this is not justice. Aval yesh davar shehu lema'ale min hahigayon hamishpati. There are some things which are above. Maybe you want to say more important, more fundamental, more necessary than logic, than the logic of justice. V'hu harachmanut. Compassion. Sometimes compassion, in this case, which makes no sense, right, has to win out. Uchein she'amru dina hachi in leman telech b'derech tovim. So here, Rabbi Weinberg references another Gemara. So if you have the source sheet, the full source sheet, let's go back to page 2. This is a great Gemara. I will flip back to it for those of you on the screen, because it is beautiful. This is one of those Gemara you should keep in your back pocket. The Gemara in Masechet Bava Metzia, 83a. Everyone have it? The Gemara says, Rabba bar Chanan tavru le hanohu shtikulai chavita dechamra. Rabba bar Chanan, it was his case, certain porters broke his barrel of wine, right? He hired them to schlep his wine, and they dropped his barrel. Shtakol legalimhu. So he took their coat, right, as payment, similar to our case in the Gemara. By the way, on your ketubah, it says that the husband has to support the wife, and he has to be willing even to give up glima me'al katfei, the coat on his back. Here it is again, glimayu. So now you know what that means. Amar l'Rav, Amru l'Rav, Amar le havlu glmayu. They came and told Rav the story, what happened. And Rav said, give them back their coat. Amar le, so Rav Bar Chanan said to him, Dina hachi, is this the halacha? Chaim? Is this the halacha? Rav said to him, yes. Leman telech b'derech tovim, that you may walk in the way of good men. He doesn't quote our pasuk, which is interesting, which means maybe you're right. And maybe here this is sort of above and beyond the call of duty. Why we have a pasuk in Mishlei. We're supposed to be good people, and these people need their coat. Meaning, technically speaking, the logic is no, they broke your barrel. And until they pay you back, you should keep their coat. That's logical. That's justice. But it's not Rachmanut. Right? So he gave them their coat. Yahav le gilimahu. Amar le aniye anan. This is chutzpah. V'tarchina kula yoma. He said, okay, thanks, but we're poor and we worked all day and we have nothing, meaning pay us now for the work. So not only now do they want their coat back, right? He has to buy a new barrel, and now he's lost the wine, and now they want their money.
I think I'm gonna reverse break.
Right. Amar le zil havagrayu. So Rava said to Baruch Hanan, go pay them. So he said, Dina hachi, is this the halacha? Amar le in va'archot tzadikim tishmor, and keep the path of the righteous. So that's the Gemara that Rabbi Weinberg is referencing in the essay. Okay, let's go back to the essay. We know we're playing musical sources here. Back to the essay on the screen too. So he quotes this Gemara. He says, "Yeah, that's the point." So I think in really, it seems like Rabbi Weinberg is actually agreeing with you, Chaim. This is not. It seems like it's not a halacha, but what he's also saying is there's something sometimes above halacha. Right? I think what Rabbi Weinberg is saying, which is something so important, halacha is the floor. Right? Halacha is the minimum that Torah asks us to do. Right? Not the there is no ceiling. Right? It's the minimum. Here, when it comes to poor people, in the case of the Gemara, they have nothing to eat. In the case of the pasuk, they have nothing to wear or nothing to sleep in at night. Right? We're asked to go above the floor. And now he starts talking about God. Hakadosh Baruch Hu Omeid, paragraph 5. Hakadosh Baruch Hu Omeid, Kiviyachol, Umiteretz et Atzmo. Halshu mitzaveh davar kazeh shu be'inei habriyot kisaluf hamishpat kiviyachol. And now God has to sort of answer himself that God is commanding something which goes against the logic. Hakadosh Baruch Hu midaber l'lev hayudi. God speaks to the heart of the Jew. Kihik suto levadahi. This is all they have. Simlato laro b'mei yishkav. What are they going to sleep in? V'im kain. Ma to'elet b'chol hakushot tamakshet. What good are all the questions you're asking? Is this logical? Is this fair? Right? That goes back to what you said, Carol. Is this fair? Is this justice? None of those questions mean anything. Harayesh kan sheila shehi machriya et kol hakushot hashela. There's another question that overpowers all of the other questions. Bamei yishkav. What are they going to sleep with? Right? If they have nothing, then the actual halacha actually doesn't matter. Right? You may have halacha on your side. Now, I don't know if you take this court to a Beit Din, what happens. I think if you take this court to a Beit Din, it's not clear. I think
It seems like that's kind of what happened in this other Gemara.
Yeah, although
Meant to the rabbi.
Right.
It's funny. Sort of.
because he asked the psak, and once he asked his rabbi, but I think if you take it to a beit, then I wonder, maybe it's different. I don't know. Go back and look and see if the Rambam deals with this directly or the Shulchan Aruch. ואחר כך אומר הקדוש ברוך הוא, דע בן אדם, אם אתה בא בטענות של היגיון ומשפט, so God says, listen up. If you come with claims of logic and justice, והעני הזה יצעק כי אין לו במה לשכב. And on the other side of the table is the ani who's crying, screaming, because they don't have what to sleep in. ושמעתי לצעקותיו ולא לטענותיך. Every time I'm going to listen to their cry and not to yours. כי חנונני. Because I'm compassionate. וזהו פירוש הכתוב, ולך תהיה צדקה לפני השם אלוקיך. Now you can go back to the very first page of the original source sheet. That's what it means at the end. The source in Devarim. I will consider this to be a merit for you if you do the right thing. שנחשב הוא כחסיד, המתחסד הוא עם קונו כביכול. I will consider this to be an act of righteousness that you've done before God. And now we'll finish with, remember we started with the Gemara about Birkat HaMazon, right? That God plays favorites to Jews because we say Birkat HaMazon, even though we're not fully satiated. What does that have to do with this? So this is amazing. V'zeh Perush Ma'amar Chazal. Amru Malachei Asharet. Quotes that Gemara. V'halo atad nosei panim l'Yisrael v'kadosh baruch hu meshiv ve'ein lecha aset panim shehem medatikim al atzmam ad kizayt v'ad kibeitza. So the way we understood it is they say Birkat HaMazon even though they've only eaten a small amount. So what captures Rabbi Weinberg's attention is, why have they only eaten a small amount? Just eat some more. What does he say? He says, many people have asked what this Gemara means. He says, but based on what we've said, it's clear. Why are they only eating a small amount? Because they're giving it away to aniyim. And they say, oh, I'm full, I'll be fine with just a small amount. That it's impossible, they say. I can't possibly eat any more if there's a poor person who's hungry and doesn't have what to eat. Right? In the pasuk in Devar, in the pasuk in Shemot, God says, I am Chanun. And now I see that they're copying me by giving away their food and saying, oh, I'm fine, I'm full, I can't possibly eat if you don't eat. So they're mimicking me, they're mimicking my compassion. How could I not favor them for that? That's his sort of twist. It's not that they just stay Birkat HaMazon even though they're not full. The reason they're not full is because they've given away their food. And in the footnote, on the bottom of the page, he says as follows. He says, apparently, Rabbi Weinberg gave this drasha, not only did he write it as an article, he also gave it as a sermon. He wrote the following, a beautiful story. The drasha, the two dots, the two stars on the bottom. The drasha be'al peh haya mosif shezocher hu Yehudim me'irato sheyura evim. He says he remembers Jews from his town who were hungry. They basically went hungry all week. They saved and pinched their pennies all week and ate very little all week so they could buy nice food for Shabbos. They came to Shul on Shabbos. And they saw a visiting stranger, a poor stranger. They would be the poor ones who barely had enough food to feed themselves. They'd be the first ones to jump and invite these poor people over. and they would give them whenever they prepared for Shabbos. Ulatzmam hayu mashirim kizayit o kibetza. And they left themselves only a kizayit or a kibetza worth. V'atem choshrim hosif Rabbi Weinberg. And do you think Rabbi Weinberg added shemlo savumi oto kizayit o kibetza? Do you think they weren't full with that? Of course they were full. Right? They were so happy and overjoyed to help, right? To help someone else. So I loved all the answers that you gave. Right? It's really tzedakah. It's tzedakah in disguise. Where Weinberg is saying it's just plain old Rachmanut. Right? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And sometimes Rachmanut has to win out over logic, right? Doesn't make sense. You know, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful idea that sometimes we get caught up in what makes sense for the minute, what's logical, but sometimes you have to think on a different plane. This plane is Rachmanut. There are other, reasonable thought processes that sometimes we have to factor in to our decision making processes that, again, sometimes are not logical, but they're necessary. And that, according to Rabbi Weinberg, is what's going on here. I don't think it's the only view. I think sometimes there's a couple of times Rashi says in Chumash that sometimes being if you're too compassionate, if you're compassionate on the evil, you'll end up being cruel to the good. Do you remember the context?
Because Shaul wouldn't kill the king of Amalek, compassionate, and then he ends up killing the people of No, because they leave. Yeah.
Right. So I think there's other things to say about it.
That's being compassionate for that person.
Right. So you have to be careful, but it's this, it's so, I guess it's this anti-Spock approach to life. Like everything has to follow perfect logic. Sometimes the heart has to answer the question, and that's what where Weinberg is going, and I think is going for here. Yeah. Okay. Any comments around the table, or any comments from the Zoom screen?
It seems to me, on the one hand, it is a beautiful concept, but on the other, I think it butts up against the concept of the law of unintended consequences. So on the micro level, absolutely, anything that encourages compassion or empathy, for sure. But then if that gets expanded too far, for example, in this case, nobody will land under, onerous circumstances to begin with. I understand that this is more pushing towards tzedakah rather than a loan, but human nature being what it is, maybe somebody will just say, forget it. I'm not going to lend because I'll never get the money back, which would be the unintended consequence of this. So I think it's a delicate balance between compassion at the micro level and, laws. I don't want to get into political discussion, but you could talk about, for example, minimum wage laws. Okay, it sounds compassionate, but if people end up hiring less people, there's more unemployment. What have you accomplished? So in my mind, I don't think it's cut and dry, but I like the fact that it's encouraging compassion. No question about that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Yasher Koach, everyone. Thank you for joining. We got a nice group today around the table, a nice group on Zoom. And next week, I think we're on. And thank you for coming and having.
Wait, can you tell us in advance the soup next week, or what's on the menu?
Oh.
We'll tell you in advance.
I'll try to we'll send out a notice.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Great.
if you have any, you want to make any recommendations.
You can make a request.
Yeah, you can send in a request.
All right, thank you.
I just got a cotton candy maker, so you never know.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Corn maker, cotton candy maker.
All right.